Welcome to Strange Brow Radio. My name is Tobe Johnson. I'm your host in perpetuity here as we get started on a new venture. Usually if you hear my voice, you know good and well that we meet at the Axe and Fiddle, the historic pub in Cottage Grove, Oregon, and do our live event where we talk about everything from UFOs to Sasquatch to, hauntings. We go all over the place, and we'll continue to do so. But as promised, we got started here with a podcast. So you've tuned into one of many episodes we'll have on such matters. So thank you for doing that. I want to thank our sponsor, Feral by Erin at Etsy.com. If you haven't checked out her website, do it. Go to Etsy, type in all one word, Feral by Erin, E-R-Y-N, and there you will find spirit drums, rattles, smudge sticks, all handcrafted by artisan Erin Jackson. She may be joining us time to time on the show here as well. But until then, go check her out, Etsy.com. All right, we'll be right back and tell you all about the show. So for our initial episode here, episode 1, Strange Brow Radio, we are going to play a previously recorded presentation by Ron Morehead of Quantum Bigfoot. He came down here on the 30th of September 2018 and gave one hell of a presentation to a pack house and one of our live events that we do at the Axe and Fiddle. You can find out more about that at strangebrow.com and go to ronmorehead.com. Check out Ron's books, CDs, and this is about an hour and 15-minute presentation with some Q&A afterwards. So I think the quality should be there. You probably hear the clickety-clack of a waitress or two in the background, but it was a great presentation, and if you hadn't heard Ron's presentation before, well, you're about ready to hear one now. So, as always, we'll see you in the trees, and enjoy Ron Morehead from the Axe and Fiddle.
You're gonna get Boston.
That was a Bigfoot making that noise, and I'll be playing these sounds throughout my presentation for you. It may be an hour long. It might seem like it's longer. Let's hope I can keep you engaged and that you find me interesting, because what I have, I think, is extremely interesting. And you should open the eyes of those skeptics that are out there. Are there any skeptics here that just don't believe in Bigfoot?
No.
Oh, well, I can leave. No, I'm not here to convince anybody. The facts are, well, they should convince you by the facts alone, not by what I say. So I'll get on with it. And it's about language. These things have language. And I don't mean like a dolphin has language or like whales communicate. Everything communicates, but these communicate with the sapient language like we have. And you'll hear this in a few minutes. Well, that wasn't language. Don't let that disturb your lunch, ladies. That was a display of one of them, how they sounded when we first encountered them. There, that's the shelter, 8 miles into the wilderness of the Sierra Nevada mountains of California. And kind of an imposing area to get to. It's an old hunting camp, been there since the 50s. And I started going in 71 when a couple of guys that had been going there longer than that had encountered what they thought was Bigfoot. They didn't know what it was, but come out, I was friends with them. I went back up, and a year later, Al Berry went up with an investigative reporter, and he's actually responsible for fostering some of these studies we've had done on these sounds. When acclimating to any new paradigm, and paradigm is how you think things are, by the way, we all got them. We all think we know so much more than we probably do. It takes time, effort, and a willingness to explore the new as well as shed the old. I like that statement, so I put it in there. But one of the oh my God. I was two having a little disagreement. They were outside this shelter I just showed you, and this is what we was hearing. We all had firearms, by the way, and we were ready to shoot our way out if we had to, or if we didn't know when they making these sounds what they were going to do, if they were going to come in at us or if they were arguing with each other. But Nancy Logan, you can read what she says here. She's a human sound expert, only 1 in 10 in the state of California, qualified with human sound. She's got expert hearing. She speaks fluent languages several times, and she made that statement. But we need to play a few of the sounds here. We can go on from Bill's knocks. These are the kind of sounds they made when they were approaching our camp. They would whoop, they would knock rocks together, they would break limbs. I think they're trying to see what we were going to, how we were going to respond. I think it's codes. You can hear one hitting over here and another one hitting over here. This was the night when they were doing it, I got to see one flashing through the trees, so they're pretty elusive, by the way. Extremely elusive, very stealthy, very fast. I got different kind of whoops that we recorded. I think that was their way of messaging between each other, because we believe there were 3 at our camp that night. They were actually doing this while we're outside the shelter. Normally they were not interact with us or make these sounds until we were inside the shelter. But this night was different. This was in 1974. It all began for us in 1971. And you want to wonder why I don't have a picture one, because we underestimated what they were then. They could seem to be a step ahead of you when you try to trick them. You can't trick these things, at least we couldn't. Two of them having a conversation, I guess. Oh, this one breathing. I think he had asthma, so I would do that one in. So we don't know if they were trying to communicate, intimidate us, or they were just curious about us. Why they came into our camp, we don't know whether they figured we didn't shoot at them, they were safe. They knew it was a deer hunting camp. There's always deer hunting there the day after season opened, and it's quite a pristine area, very imposing to get to, like I say. So why they dealt with us, I don't know. Maybe just so I could share this with you today, I hope. Okay, thank you, Toby. This is Alan Berry. That's he and I when we went into camp. His son took this picture. This was years ago, one of his last trips. And he was the investigative reporter we took to this camp and he went in under the pretense of Ivan Sanderson. I don't know if you've heard of him, a cryptozoologist who got a 23-page letter from Warren Johnson, the leader of our group, explaining what was going on in his camp. He thought it was a hoax, and he made that well known to a man named Peter Byrne out on the West Coast who thought he might want to examine it. Peter also thought it was just somebody hoaxing him, pulling the leg, so he sent it down to Al Berry, who lived in Redding, California. That's Alan Berry. He was working for the Redding Sasquatch newspaper at the time. Came down very skeptical. He decided that we decided we'd let him go in and check it out. And he was looking for a hoax all the time. He never told us that. I found that he was looking through our packs. He was actually looking through our packs while we were out, looking for somebody who could have been fooling him, how this was going on. But he a little loud, Toby.
That worked. Can you play it again?
Play it again, Sam.
Yeah, play it again. Go ahead.
Go ahead and play it again.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
play it again.
How's that? Good. Huh? Anyway, did you read that statement there? Credible evidence is often ignored if it doesn't fit in a certain person's paradigm. That's so true. And it's very true in the scientific community, it seems like. They seem to think if it's out there, it has to be some kind of a lost ape or some type, maybe the missing link, something like that. And that's what they look for, something that'll fit in their box. I got news for them, and I've been telling them for years that it's a little different than that. Until they've had a personal experience themselves, they're probably never going to believe what these things could represent. Alan Berry looked all over trying to find someone that would study these sounds and take them seriously. He was made the butt of jokes from quite a few professors who he was going to. He had a master's degree in science. He wasn't no dummy. Big man, 6'4". He was an officer in Vietnam, and he was just really trying desperately to get somebody to take these on. And it wasn't until he got Dr. Curlin at the University. Anybody heard the term cognitive dissonance? No? Yeah, okay. Well, it's a mental conflict that occurs when beliefs or assumptions are contradicted by new information. And somebody say something? Oh. This is Professor Curlin's work. He studied the sounds for a year at the University of Wyoming, and the box you see in the middle is the average human sound range. That's what we talk in. And the sounds that, just one little blurb that I'll play here, these sounds are in those little icons you see on the far left. And listen carefully to the very last of this. It sounds very human-like, and that's because those little dots are in the human range. You hear that? I didn't either. Well, let's see. Anyway, trust me. Trust me. That's what it is. The sound, you may hear another link here in a minute, but got a little issue going on here with this thing. Unknowingly, the professor at AT&T corroborated Dr. Curlin's report by saying the sounds represented an animal that was about 8'4", 8'5" tall. And his whole report, his whole report came out in this book, Man Like Monsters on Trial, which his paper was presented at the UBC Press, or UBC in British Columbia, in 1978, actually. And anyway, the whole report can be read in that book if you have access to it or can get it. It went into print in 1980, and it's been part of the record for all these years. But yet, people still can't get their head around these things, maybe have a language or can make these sounds. And these sounds represent something that can go above, in between, and below our range. And it's quite some interesting things. This is a cryptolinguist who will be on Skype later talking to us, how he transcribed language out of these sounds. And when I say language, I mean language by the human definition of language. That means whatever these things are, they have to have the same vocal mechanism we have, and or at least that or more. And they talk in streams of words, what they call morpheme streams. And those streams of words make a sapient sentence. And other animals don't do that. They'll make a sound, or they'll do something to track the opposite, but they don't have sapient language like humans. That's what we're called, Homo sapiens. We're sapiens. Homo sapiens sapiens, which means as wisest of the wise, which I question that. But that's what they say. Anyway, he's been vetted thoroughly. He's one of only a few in the world that could probably do this. He seeked us out. It's not a sin. Yeses. Anyway, he came all the way up from Missouri where he's teaching foreign languages after he retired from the military as a cryptolinguist. And he heard these sounds by accident and came out and interviewed me and Mr. Berry separately to find out the context of the sounds, what was going on, and took the original sounds back and studied them and made a statement that they have a complex language by the human definition of language. That don't mean they're just communicating. That means they are thinking things through like we're supposed to do. And here's the catcher right here. I love this one. This is the third piece of evidence. Just came up in the last few weeks. This guy, Thinker Thunker. Everybody ever heard of that? He's on YouTube. Catch it. Sierra Sounds. Thinker Thunker, Sierra Sounds. He does a 20-minute presentation on what he found in these sounds, which no one's done before like he did. He said in one, and they do this several times throughout their vocalizations, in one sound they can make 5 octaves in one tone. And no human on this earth is supposed to be able to do that. No animal on this earth is supposed to be able to do that. So that makes these even more unique, how that happens. Right now, as we speak, I got word out trying to find some more professional cooperation for that, because I contacted Dr. Curran, who I haven't been with. He isn't anything for us. He's retired in 2002, but so he won't get into this, and he shouldn't. But he's going to try to dig me up somebody that will do the cooperation for us. If it can be corroborated, if these things really make 5 octaves in one note, my gosh, that should be the smoking gun. I'd like to have it right outside your shelter. You don't know what to do. There's my smoking gun. I made that. I kind of like it. Anyway, everything, absolutely everything, has a vibrational frequency. And so I'm going to get into my newest book, The Quantum Bigfoot, because as you think, and as we sit here, we see and think we know everything we're seeing, but there's more going on than what we can see. Can you hear me? Okay. And anyway, we only see within a certain frequency, light frequency. How far? There's more going on. There's just so much more going on. Quantum physics was introduced about a little over 100 years ago, and it kind of takes over with classical science, and that's what we're all been taught, Newtonian physics in grade school, really. How everything's measurable, everything is figured out, everything can be figured out. Well, you can't figure out everything. They did that because they couldn't figure out how space was, how the universe worked. Well, that's where Einstein came in, Tesla, Bohr. These people started working that quantum physics, and it's established mathematically, scientifically, that there are other dimensions that exist. Religions might call that heaven. Quantum physics calls it dimensions. And that's kind of important to understand. There's other things going on that we don't see. There's another. Anyway, I put the question out one time. Somebody, if you think everything's measurable, like classical science says it is, tell me how far it is to the end of the universe. And nobody got back to me on that one. We think everything goes with our 5 senses, but we don't see everything that's out there. This is, that's me in a little sock hat. Well, I had sock hats back then. Keep our heads warm. 8,400 feet in the Sierra Nevada mountains. It's really bright when the moon's out. It's also cold. And you can see the snow there. We was up there as much as we could get up there. Before the snow would take you out in the wintertime, you couldn't go back till spring. But I want to play this because this is a vocal interaction with me. By the way, I'm going back to sock hats. If these things have sagittal crests, like, you know what sagittal crest is, a pointed head, maybe they thought we were their little brothers, because we wore those sock hats like that. I don't know. Well, that was me yelling back and forth at one of them that night. This went on for over an hour. And it was quite an interesting night. Again, that's when they first started interacting with us while we were outside the shelter. It's the very night I got to see one. And that's kind of cemented everything for me. Even though we knew we were dealing with something up there, we didn't know what. Still don't know what. But having language by the human definition of language implies sapience. I think I said that. But if sapience is attributed to humans only, what could that mean? Could they be part human? So we're trying to understand what we're dealing with there. Those folks out here who have seen these things and have understood that they probably are out there because maybe your cousin or your relative or someone saw one right in front of their car or something like that. You're out hunting, you saw something that was walking upright, you just can't believe it was a bear. So, and some of these are misidentified, but a lot of them are not. That's a little concerning. How does something so big stay so concealed? Everybody said, well, hey, if they're out there, we'd have found one by now. Or science says, where's the bones? Or people say that. Most people who've been out in the woods know you just don't find bones laying around everywhere. If the native lore is correct, they take care of their own. If nature's correct, they clean up after themselves. So you will never see one like that. They did find remnants of Gigantopithecus in Asia, which was a 10 to 12 foot tall. They think if it stood upright, had a gorilla-type beam. And that was a long time ago. They figured it went extinct, but now the scientists that I work with believes that they may have crossed over the land bridge and come down and started maybe crossbreeding with the natives or something like that. But that means something else special. If they're able to crossbreed, which I believe they are, because when they do find the DNA of what they believe was a Bigfoot, it turns out that the mitochondrial, which is the female side, is human. Yet sometimes they can't determine what the nuclear DNA, which is the male counterpart, is. And that's out of 224 billion in the gene bank. There's no match. And that's what throws the geneticists off, because it must have been contaminated. If that's the truth, then it must be contaminated if it's got human DNA in it. Well, no, they are part human in my opinion. And that's what gives them their sapiens too. But where they come from, what are they doing here? That's something else I'd like to get into. What gives them their unusual attributes? Can science give us the answer? Are they flesh and blood? Yes, something made these sounds that was flesh and blood. Something made the prints up there at our camp that was flesh and blood. So they procreate, they poop, but could there be more that we need to understand? I absolutely think so. So how do we understand them? There's some enigmas associated with these things that we run across up there, and there's no explanation for it in classical science playbook, which means you can see everything that is. Just no explanation. The lights, the sounds, not only just the vocalizations, I mean sounds like a big tuning fork above your head, or sounds like the camp is being tore apart out there, and you look out there and nothing's changed. They either get into your head and hypnotize all of us thinking we're thinking that or hearing that, or they're able to create those sounds with their very complex vocal mechanism. Science is built upon facts as a house is with stones, but a collection of facts is no more science than a heap of stones is a house. I kind of like that, so I'll put it on there. You guys know who this guy is, probably, don't you? Stephen Hawking's, his ability to change. Can we all change what we think we know if we find out something new? I see one head shake, yes. Anybody else? Can anybody else change if you found out something new? This is maybe new to some of you. I mean, it's pretty complex when you really get into the depth of it, and what I think we've discovered and what I think I've discovered in my studies. I've been around the world. I've been in Nepal, I've been into Peru, I've been into Bolivia, I've been into Siberia. been around the world looking for anything that might associate with what we ran across here in the Sierra Nevada mountains and how it might associate. Because these things seem to be reported all over. They took me into Siberia, way back into a remote area, into a huge cave you drive a truck into, so that they've been seeing the wild man, the Yeti, going in and out of there. Well, maybe there was tracks in there, but then when they take you to a spot like that, you really can't say 100% that they didn't create that. It's kind of a filming thing anyway. So we said 95% chance it was. It's just too hard to get to. Really, it was quite a trip. This is classical science. Let me show you the difference here. It's just show me the proof. You got to have the proof. Most scientists, most people study with this method exclusively. They got to get a picture. They got to have proof. They got to have proof, which is wrong, but that's restricted as far as I'm concerned. One thing about classical science, it's based upon the claim that all reality is physical or material, and that's really not so true. It requires a body of evidence. It cannot be predicated on likes or dislikes. It cannot be founded on your beliefs or your disbeliefs. It must be proven by repeatable experiments. So that's classical science. I ask you, are they being restricted by this method? And I tell them straight up, the professors I talk with, you're not going far enough. But that's what they're been trained in. If they get out of that discipline, they lose their tenure, they lose their funding, they lose. So therefore, they don't study this subject hard. There are a few that still do. What I like is what the astronaut Edgar Mitchell said. He said it takes classical and quantum sciences together to have clear perception. How many here are familiar with quantum physics? Uh-oh. Are you physicists? Anybody physicists? That was close. No, but physics, I'm not a physicist, but I've been delving into it for years and years now since I've been trying to find a science behind what went on up there, because it just, some of the stuff just didn't make sense. The lights, the orbs, was up there a couple of years ago, with my sweetheart over here, Carrie. Carrie, raise your hand. Yeah. She's the other part of what makes me happen. And we were camped out because the shelter's not there any longer. We had to take it down in 2015, but we had a little tent with an open top, or screened-in top, and we was laying there. I was sitting there, and she was there, and this elongated light, about this long, I tell people it looked like a Star Wars lightsaber, you know those things, comes floating by our tent, about 40 feet above our tent, and about 4 or 5 foot high, going between the trees. Now that's a little concerning too. You don't know what this thing is, but it's not normal. There's nothing up there that can do that we know of in our classical thinking. So, but strange things up there is not unusual. It's a very unique area in the Sierras. Anyway, you got to combine these two. You reach out to classical science as much as you can. If you can find a picture, great. If you get tracks, great. If you can record the sound, great. But it's got to go further than that because you still don't know what they are. And DNA has not given us that. Quantum science is how all things in the universe work. That goes on with light. It goes on with time. We think time is yesterday, today, and tomorrow, but really in the quantum field of experience, time don't exist as we perceive it in our reality here. It's just not like that. But you can step out of that and you can do it within yourself. And we've been listening to and reading about a guy who teaches how to do this. He's a neophysicist, and he's a neuroscientist, I should say. You got the science behind you, how you can connect to the pineal gland, which is inside you, that's how you sense things. That's how you sense things. Sometimes you can read things, you can understand things, you don't know how consciousness works. They still can't explain how consciousness works, but classical science will never explain that. It takes quantum science to explain it. This guy named Joe Dispenza, I want to say his name because I would recommend his book to anybody here who hasn't read it already. It's just phenomenal that it explains to you in detail how our body can create things. We are born and made as creators in the image of God, I'll say, whatever God is. And as creators, we can create. I get all carried away with some of this stuff, don't I? Physics, yeah. Okay, here's what Einstein said. He said, science without religion is lame, religion without science is blind. Well, what does that mean? I think if he said it today, he'd say spirituality. I don't think he'd say religion, because religion's been taken they're in a box too. They got their thing made up. So I'm not against religion, but I'm for spirituality more than anything. I think we're all spiritual beings inhabiting a body, and this energy, which cannot die, according to Stephen Hawking, according to quantum physics, energy doesn't die, it goes somewhere else. It just transfers from one form to another. And if that's true, which it is true according to the math and quantum physics, then we go somewhere when you die. Go on, whatever that is. And anyway, I think he would say spirituality, not religion, just because of what they had in science in those days. They believed in God, but then Einstein said God doesn't play dice. He doesn't just go up. But quantum field is the possibility of so many different things. Get into it. Oh, there it is. Science without religion, lame. Here's something Tesla said. What one man calls God, another man calls the laws of physics. Now, it's Sunday, not preaching to you here, so don't get the wrong idea. But I just wonder, and I believe, that quantum physics and spirituality are the same. You get into shamans, you get into what Christ was, the guy in the Bible, you know, and the mysteries that are contained in there, the miracles that were done through the laws of quantum physics. The laws that control the universe is quantum physics. And he said whatever he's doing, we can do. But I don't see anybody here, including me, that's walking on water yet. So just, we've got more to go, folks. Researching means looking at all the data available. And you gotta look at the history, you gotta look at evolution, native lore. I've looked into all these things extensively, and I just believe that an effective researcher does not selectively find reports that fit his or her paradigm, does not discredit others, keeps an open mind. Very important to have an open mind. Does everybody here have an open mind?
Yeah!
Thank you, thank you, thank you. 3, 4, 5 people do, okay. But not so open that your brains fall out, okay? You gotta keep that. Let's consider this. Over eons of time, history has been lost or changed. What once was known as truth became myth, and myth became proven as truth. I believe there's a core of truth to mythology, Greek mythology, and ancient text. By that I mean demigods. I mean fallen angels or aliens, whatever you want to call them. This is Native American lore. They say they live in two worlds. What could that mean? They live in two worlds. Do we live in two worlds, or just the one we see? Is there more going on that we need to know about ourselves? I think if we can learn more about ourselves, we can learn more about what these things are, because I can tell you this, they think that we think we're smarter than them. Because we thought we were. We tried to trick them, and you wouldn't believe how they can out-negotiate you. You can't go looking for them and make something happen. It just doesn't work that way. I've been doing this for 45 plus years now, and just, anyway, they also say spirit beings that can disappear. Can anything in physics cause something to disappear, go out of our light's perception? All these vibrational frequencies which exist out there that are outside of our perception. Yes, there's a lot of things outside of our perception, but it's all, we are at the very basic level energy. And that's what we are. That's fact. We're just all energy. We're different forms, but we're energy. That energy cannot die, it can only change forms. So how can you change, if these things could disappear like the native lore says, And like so many people have reported to me over the years, which I used to just write off because I was in classical science only for a long time. I used to think these people are nuts. They got candles lit all over the place. No, let's get out of here. So anyway, if they can disappear, is there science behind it? Al Berry, who had a master's degree in science, said if you're going to talk about this stuff, stay with science or you'll lose credibility. Well, so for years and years, we just talked about the stuff that we could explain classically. We didn't talk about the mysterious stuff that went on up there, and there's a lot more that happened than what I'm telling you here today. It just take forever. But a lot of people have experienced this stuff, and they keep it behind themselves or keep it pinned in because they think somebody's going to think they're crazy. You might think I'm crazy. I don't care. You know, I'm just going to be who I am, and I've gone through this so many years. I just don't care. I'm going to tell you what it is. Is there a core truth in any of this stuff? I believe there is a core truth. Who what? Who said what? Oh, thank you. Anybody believe that story from the Bible?
I do.
You do?
I believe it. Come on, you guys don't believe it?
Well, I got a hand over there. Well, giants have existed on this earth. It's in all records all over the earth. And we got bones, we got all kinds of evidence showing giants have been here. You got the Paiutes in Nevada that warred against these hairy giants in the Lovelock area. I've been there 4 times studying that stuff. However, the remnants of all these bones and everything have been taken away. They won't let you look at them anymore. Any bones. I mean, they found the Martindale mummies in Yosemite. They found those in 1898. Can't find those anymore. You got the minaret skull, which was found in the Sierra Nevada mountains. There's a huge human-like skull. Dr. Denton sent it into UCLA. It's gone. Can't find it. Something captures all this stuff because they don't want to destroy all the stuff they've been shoving down our throat for years and years and years, which is, this is the way it happened. Darwinism, that's the way it is. Religious people over here, that's the way it is, just go with that. But there's something in between that I think we need to get a hold of. And anyway, is there a core truth? I think so. Is there alien intervention? Could there be? There's a lot of reports of people seeing UFOs and also seeing these things around them. So what's going on there? Is there, what type of beings are these things? There's a core truth to that. Okay, we're going to see if this next one works. It worked. At the most minute level of matter, the subatomic level, everything is energy. I said that a minute ago. It's vibrating at different frequencies. So if you can tune into the frequency of anything, you can become one with it. And that maybe you say it a lot right now, but it's how things work. It's how these people do their miracles. You can tune into things, and this Joe Dispenza book called, what's it called? Becoming Supernatural. He's got the science behind how we can do that as people. You don't get anything else, get that. You can buy it now in audio form, so you can listen to it, and it's just a great thing to hear because it finally got how that stuff works and how we can become how Christ taught us to become, which was supernatural. It seems supernatural. It's just natural if you get into it. But again, these things that adapt into those things, if they have alien parts to them on the nuclear side, the male counterpart, if that's happened in ancient texts, like the crossbreeding with the humans to create corrupt a human genome, which we're supposed to be from a pure race. That's why the flood happened, all that stuff. However, the Nephilim, which were the giants in the old, were produced by fallen angels or aliens. You find that all kinds of stuff. It's all in my book over there, which I'm going to give you a special deal with it if you want one. My perspective. How am I doing on time, Toby?
You're good. Keep going.
I'm done. No, I'm not done. My perspective is this. Beings from the cosmos, beings from the cosmos have been here on this planet and could be here now. How many here believe that aliens have been on this earth? Trust me, I've seen remnants of them in South America. I've been down on 2 different expeditions with 2 different scientists on 2 different years, and they have been here. I've found the elongated skulls. We've gone into tombs. They're here. They've been here. So we've examined the skulls of some of these things which have a single parietal bone. They don't have a split like we do with 2 parietals like we have on top of our head. These things are, well, they're just not totally human. And anyway, you fly over the Nazca lines and see all the stuff down there, it opens your eyes to realizing there's stuff going on and has gone on in our past that we need to catch up with and understand that it really has happened. It's not just a story somewhere. And the facts are down there that can prove that to you. Anybody in there? Who's been down to South America, Peru, Chichen, and all those places? No? Okay. I could say anything, you wouldn't know the difference, huh? It's been written that they crossbred with the humans, and that's been written in biblical texts, it's been written in Greek mythology, Hebrew mythology, demigods they were called, and is that all just myth, or is there truth to any of it? Well, as far as I'm concerned, there's truth to some of it, because that's what these things could be a remnant of. Some of them are crossbred in the native cultures, and indigenous people, and have become more diluted than some, so some are more human-like than others. It's just, could there be a product of upbreeding? Yeah. Alien manipulation of the DNA. Now, they are advanced beings, whatever they are. They got more going on than what we understand. They work, I believe, in the quantum field. That's how they travel, because once you go past the speed of light, you're into just energy only. And they must have a way of doing that. By the way, your thoughts can go faster than the speed of light, because Einstein said nothing can go faster than the speed of light. He's talking about matter, physical things. Nothing can go faster than light, because once it does, it turns into just your energy. That's what we're going to turn into when you pass on to something else. You hope. And all these reports of are they able to disappear? Well, I had for years heard people talk about how they follow the tracks, and the tracks just stop. And they can't figure out where they went. And this is on the beach in the sand, no tide, none of that stuff. Just all of a sudden the tracks stop. Well, a lot of researchers will just write a report off like that and say, well, there's nothing to it because it just couldn't disappear, so they must have hoaxed the tracks. Well, they can do that. They can change their energy into matter, their matter into energy. Somehow they know how to do that. I think that attribute's been given to them by their creator, whoever messed around with the DNA of a primate here and caused these things to exist. It's just my opinion, but I think it's got some basis. Yeah, that's why I say, could their vocal range create a vibrational frequency that would cause them to go out of our perception? Because we only perceive, like I say, a certain frequency, and it's called light. Light has its frequencies. You get out of that and things exist. Even dark matter exists. You know, all the space you think was empty, you've been taught was just empty space between the planets. It's not empty. It's dark matter. According to Stephen Hawking and other physicists, energy is full of energy vibrating at different frequencies. So, could that be where you go until you find another spot? I don't know. This is fun, isn't it? Some may want to help us, but some may not want to help us. Because I think that they are different, and I don't mean different by some are good and some are bad, like that, not restricted like that. We are all humans. When you go to Mexico, when you go to China, when you go to Africa, wherever you go, they're different people, and some of them are mean and some of them are good, but they're all still humans, as by the definition of human. All on this planet are humans. I don't think all these are necessarily the same species. They may carry the same mitochondrial DNA, the maternal side, because that's what the DNA is showing. But the nuclear DNA, the male counterpart, is unknown. And the geneticists that are saying it's unknown are being wiped off the board because, no, everything's known, right? That's the way science thinks, in a way, at least the classical way. Come in. Anyway, this is my book, the newest book. I've got two books. This book is about the quantum field and how I think these things are hooking into it somehow, and how I think we can actually hook into it. And that's Joseph Dispenza that I was talking about. He will give you really good information on how to hook into it, how to become what we're supposed to be as humans, how these things may be already, because they have advanced technology built into their DNA through their nuclear counterpart, whatever that is. Aliens, and different types of aliens have been here over the eons, and I don't want to get too spooky on you guys, but they're here now. And you see, they're reported all over, and finally the government's acknowledging them. Finally, even our president, bless his soul, is creating a space what is it?
Space Force.
Thank you. Space Force. Yeah. You know, in my book, I get into, I'm doing what Einstein did, and I don't mean to put myself on the same level as him, but spirituality and quantum physics are the same. If you get into biblical texts and some of that stuff, you'll see just how those things are and how it matches up with quantum physics. So, if you want to get into my book and read some of this stuff, it may be how Bigfoot is doing what they do. I get into some of the mystical stuff that went on with me and the other guys up there, and no one's pulling our leg. That's what Alberti was up there for. He was trying to figure out who's doing this, because there wasn't leaving anything that's up there, large voices that we could record and traps. And you could not get a picture, much as we tried to rig up threads and everything else. These things like they were watching you. And I know they were watching us at times. There was a time when we sit at the stove eating and we hung our deer up behind the shelter. I don't hunt anymore, by the way. But at that time I was a hunter. And we went back to check out because they would usually come in and mess around with our deer. They wouldn't take it, but they would take food we'd leave on the stove or out for them. We went back there because we raked out an area underneath the deer. And while we were sitting there eating, one had walked up and looked over our shelter at us. We found 3 tracks right there under our deer. And that was pretty eye-opening, because then you realize they're looking at us maybe right now, you know. Anyway, spooky. This is my other book. It's called, the first book I put out in 2012. It's called Voices in the Wilderness. And it's my chronicle, 40 years doing this. At that time it was 40 years. It's 46 now, going on 47. Time flies when you have fun. Anyway, I have sold under 1 million copies. But it is my chronicle. It's what I went through. It comes with a CD, by the way. The CD, when you get to the context of the sounds that I'm talking about, as we're going through this, you'll hear the sound. And you'll got to do is play it. Working on an audio book now, which I hope to have out before the end of the year, of this one here. The quantum physics I haven't even started on yet with an audio book, because I got to have different Russian voices and physicists with accents and all that kind of stuff chiming in with it to make it sound like I want it to sound. So anyway, it's a term you should hear. Well, that is my presentation. My contact information is right here. Toby, am I too early? I talk fast, don't I?
Well, we have a lot of time left if you want to do a question and answer.
Okay, I'll do that. Swamp Curve, I'll do that, yeah.
In fact, anybody who wants to talk, I have a microphone here.
Anybody have a question? I love questions.
Anybody?
Don't be afraid. Don't be bashful.
I'll raise the microphone here. Thanks, first of all. Thanks, everybody. Hey, thank you for coming, and thank Ron for showing up here.
Thank you.
What a turnout. Awesome. Thank you. Ron, you and I had the chance to head out in the woods yesterday with a few fine folk and take a picture of Biggie here. You know, one of the things I did classically is try to add kind of a Euro-Asian theme to him, but the samurai chatter, I know Matt Moneymaker, the BFRO, maybe coined the term, but as far as like the Asian dialect there, was that something consistent that you would hear? Is this kind of Asian dialect that that's different?
It was in 74, Toby, but the first part of 71, 72, no, it was very aggressive sounding, very rapid fire, very, very fast. And but by the time 74 came out, the cryptolinguist says that they actually tried to slow their vocalizations down. And it's on my second CD, a lot of the interaction I was doing with them. It sounds very interesting how they replied back to me, or I was trying to mimic them. And the response I got was quite phenomenal. And that's the night I saw one. The Samurai Cry, I didn't play that, did I?
No, play the samurai.
You got it, I don't know.
We'll do an impression of it.
Oh yeah, right. I can't do that. In fact, I even say that on the CD, on the tape, when I was recording it. I can't follow that act. But one was behind me, and it was actually found on a toilet seat, which we had taken up there. All this stuff was packed in with our mules and reassembled and stuff like that. So we had really a cool camp setup up there. And anyway, for years and years, we enjoyed the pristine wilderness that was up there. The Samurai Cry came from up here. That's when he was interacting or yelling at, we think, an adolescent and a female down below, which were interacting. And he shot through the trees down that way. That's when I saw him. It was just huge and very, very, very fast. I can't explain how fast it was, inhumanly fast.
Anybody else have questions? Because I could go all day up here. Clarence? Yeah, Aaron.
Yeah. What do you think the closest was you could hear these voices coming from? Like, what was the distance?
The closest we heard them?
Yeah.
Probably within 10, 15 feet of our shelter.
Oh my gosh. Was it ear splitting? Did it shake your chest cavity, or was it like that at all?
It would, yeah, the amplitude, you can't describe the amplitude. It's so loud. These things are so big. And they're bigger than that, Toby.
That's a junior.
At least the big ones are. Yeah, I had a stereo headset. I had the best cassette player you could get in those days that had worked off batteries. And I had two excellent microphones, one on each side of the shelter like this. And I could lay there with my headset on and hear them walking between the sounds. And I lost all my tapes, which I lost them in a house fire a few years later. So, Al Berry, fortunately, I'd sent him one of these ones that I interacted, because that was one of my tapes. I sent it to him, and he had that when my house burned down, so he sent it back, and then encouraged me to make the second CD with those sounds on it. So that's what I've done. But yeah, they came with it. Al Berry, when he recorded some of those aggressive sounds you heard there on this, he had his mic remoted with a wire up, stuck to a little cigarette pine tree up there about 40 feet behind our shelter. And we think one was behind one of those trees with this boulder outcropping, which is just beyond that little ways. And if Professor Bellman is correct, he says we have remnants of sacks under our firearms here, like the gorillas do, and they can push them like that and get them really loud and throw their voice out a lot. So if that's what these things have, that could answer how these things sounded like they were standing right on top of this microphone when they made these sounds. But he had his head up there too, trying to see what was making the sound. Al Berry, he's 6'4", made a hole up in the top of the shelter and crawled up there and was looking back there towards the microphone, and he never did see anything. But the only thing we ever got were glimpses. My daughter got a good look at one, Rhonda, and she did one. And in fact, she saw them 3 times up there. And, any other questions?
Yeah, real quick, I want to ask, by a show of hands, how many people here who haven't had an interaction, who would actually like to have an interaction with a Sasquatch? Raise your hand if you would like to. So you see 20 hands here, people that haven't had an interaction. What do you suggest to these fine folks? How should they go about doing that?
Well, you get in the woods where probably they've been reported, which is around here, by the way. There's a lot of them reported around here. That's why I'm here. Well, they're seen quite regularly out in these wooded areas, but a lot of times you've got to recognize some of their telltale signs, which they'll try to toy with you. Like I say, they think with fire, they want to toy with humans. And I don't know why, but they do. And I think if you want to get close to them, you have to get into those spots, get away from people though, get back where nobody is, where you know nobody is. Don't tell anybody where you're going, but don't go by yourself. Take somebody with you. Somebody needs to look over your shoulder, and when you hear a sound that way, have somebody else looking behind you, because they're very tricky that way. Get there, clear your mind, get off your beta state of thinking, which is how we all are now, right now, thinking, analytical. Get into just as you get into alpha state of sleep, which is when you're really, you're not asleep, but you're not awake. You guys know what I'm talking about there. There's 5 stages of sleep, and you got to get right there where you're not trying to analyze things, you're just ready to be simple. And be simple. And if they want to interact with you, they will. You cannot make it happen. You can't blast these sounds and make it happen. Well, you might make something happen, but people that blasted these aren't really happy, because one time a guy said this thing comes charging at him out of the woods. So you don't know what they're saying. We still don't know what. Yeah, Scott Nelson transcribed a language, but he didn't translate a language. He doesn't know what they're saying. He just knows it is a language. And really, until one comes out of the woods and points to a tree and goes ooga ooga and says that's a tree, or ooga ooga means a tree, you don't know that ooga ooga means a tree. So we don't know what they're saying, but we know they're saying something. And that night, when I interacted with them, they were asking me something. For years and years, I've hoped somebody would get a hold of these and be able to actually translate what they were saying. But you can't do that until you know what a word means in their language. And it's a complex language. It's not just a language. It's a very complex language, very rapid fire.
Any questions here?
And I do have a list of do's and don'ts, my suggestions for people.
Let's go over those.
Well, I don't have it in front of me. Huh?
You'll have to read his book. So the book's not, the books are for sale.
I'll tell you anything you ask. I just don't know where to go with this. There's all kinds of things you can't.
Ron, bringing a gun, bringing a sidearm. What do you say about people that feel like for safety's sake, they don't want to go out in the woods without a gun, but if they're going to have a Bigfoot encounter, how would that affect their approach?
Well, in a way, it affected us, but it didn't. We had guns all the time. I've never been up there without a firearm and a high-powered firearm. Well, a time or two I had little ones, but just for getting the bear away. A lot of bear where we go up there. There was. It's all burnt down now. These California fires took over the area, so we don't have that camp like it was. The area is still there, so I don't know what happened to these beings during that time. But they've been spotted all in that area. I just got a report from a guy a couple weeks ago who been hunting there for 15 years, and he saw one. So anyway, it's.
We've got a question.
Hey, I remember you.
Here, go ahead. Hold the mic so everyone can hear.
Yeah, I was just saying there's so much clear cutting also going on, and how's that might be affecting them?
The fear?
Yeah, clear cutting as well as the fires, you know.
Well, you got to get past the fear factor, because you can't help but trigger that a little bit, because you don't know what you're dealing with yet. There's been a lot of reports of these things taking people.
No, Ron, he's talking about clear cutting the forest. How is that
clear cutting?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a lot. Clear cutting? There's something going on with trees. These things don't like you to disturb the trees like that. Clear cutting, there's a lot of reports of these things being seen around where they're doing logging in this area, in different areas. I know I'm a pilot. When I was flying back and forth from California to Washington, it looked like a checkerboard out there. You fly over Oregon and Washington. California don't clear cut. Clear cutting, well, trees in general, there's a whole theory about trees and these things, which if they can transform out of matter into energy, they've got to have energy to maybe bust back in. And sometimes the tree knock you hear, like the one I heard in 2011 when I was up there, was like a gunshot going off right outside where I was. And I knew that's what they do. So I went outside, it was still daylight, started trying to talk to them when they would come in, let me learn more about them. But sometimes I wonder if, and by the way, something else happened that night too, that's very mysterious. But the tree thing is quite unique. There's some people that suggest, they don't suggest, they say emphatically that these things are re-energizing in trees. And that's the case, that would cause them to be really hooked in with trees, right? Yes.
Hi. Hello, everybody. I'm Connie.
Hi, Connie.
Hi.
Are you going to sing for us, Connie?
Yes. I want to tell a story that happened to me and my husband and dad maybe about a month ago. Yeah. We were out in the oxbow. I don't know if anyone knows that stretch of woods out there. Yeah. And we were sitting there. Joey was playing guitar, and we have my dog with us, and we hear this sound, and it's maybe 200 yards. And forgive my impression, but here it goes. It was something like doo doo doo. And it was, the pitch never faltered, all the same pitch every time, a little bit difference in the distance of what it did, but that same little rattle at the end. And it was a massive animal. We could feel it in our chest, like you could feel the noise of it. It did it maybe 7 times in a row. And my dogs who are normally protectors, were just standing there and they were alert but not barking. We're like, so. Another story is that my dad's best friend is a paid cougar trapper. So I'm saying, Dad, is it a cat? Is it a cat? Because he knows every sound that animal's gonna make. And he just like completely checked out. He's like, all right, so what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna load this gun so that we all know. And he won't answer me if it's a cat or not. And then I think maybe after about 7 times we heard it in the one spot, it was all of a sudden 300 yards this way and closer. And it was the same sound. And so at this point, which is why I'm glad we talked about guns too, I told my husband to go ahead and fire the gun because I was worried about my dog and the cougar. And then we never heard it again, of course. We fired into an abatement, not out into the woods somewhere we would shoot anything. So that's my Bigfoot story.
All right. A lot of people ask me about dogs and these things. Well, on my second CD, I've got a recording there of a guy who called the deputy's office when he actually had an encounter with one of these things. And he had his dog killed right up here in Oregon by what he now knows was a Bigfoot, because it was a 35-pound German Shepherd, or no, 35 yards. It was a heavy German Shepherd. But it went out after the something, he didn't know what it was. His essential light went on about 1 o'clock in the morning. And he heard a big thump like that. His dog was barking a big thump and it squealed, and then his dog comes sailing 35 feet over a fence and killed his dog. So if a dog is out there and they're going to go after you, they will either go after them to protect you, or just the dog's nature is to bark at things. It's going to irritate them. So I don't suggest that. However, some dogs will obey you enough to stay by your side and cower down and just not mess with them. That's happens more than these things.
I think I could probably find that audio, that 911 call that you're talking about. It's up in the Olympics where the guy calls the 911 and the dog. Yeah. So that's an actual 911 phone call. If you go on YouTube and type in 911 Bigfoot call, it's a very, very realistic phone call that involves a man in distress that sees a Bigfoot live action on 911.
Yeah, I interviewed that guy personally, and I thought it was so compelling. And we got the records from the deputies from the sheriff's department. I edited them a little bit because a lot of typing goes on between the reports. It was 2 reports from the same guy about 2 weeks apart. And the first time he never knew what really got his dog and threw it clear across over there. But the second time his wife came on outside, he saw this thing standing out there. That's when he put 2 and 2 together, and that's when he called the sheriff's department again. And yeah, it's a very compelling story, totally believable. And he was a very sober man. So. By the way, camp was sober when we were there too.
All right, anybody else have questions? Anybody in the back? Yeah, Francis. Say it with your outside voice.
Are you saying children?
She wants to know what about children?
We didn't take our children up there until they were a little older, 10, 12.
They have children. When we were little, we played in the woods all the time. And I mean, like, it's locally here. And then also, you know, like she was mentioning down by the hospital, that even in that heavily wooded area. And never once has any of my family or anybody that's around that have done this,
Say here so everyone can hear you.
none of the children have ever mentioned anything like a Bigfoot approaching or watching. Because for, I mean, a yucky example, but when my sisters and I were up playing in the creek, we were walking through there and we walked into a whole herd of elk. And they didn't bother with us or anything. And I can't imagine, I mean, how many times hunters have gone up and would love to have had that situation and never had it, but the elk were afraid of us because we were children. So
Well,
what about Bigfoot? I
Well,
mean,
they're not out there trying to interact with people all the time or let people see them. They're very elusive. They're not going to mess with kids as a rule.
but wouldn't they be curious enough to maybe say,
Well,
like,
maybe
sit
they're not
on a
even
rock
there.
and
They may not
watch
even be
them?
there when that happens, you know, when your children are out there. Or when, because hunters, a lot of hunters I've talked to, well, if those things were out there, I'd have seen one by now. I'm in the woods hunting every year, you know. Also, if I've had hunters say if they saw one, it disappeared right in front of their eyes, it cloaked out. That means that their perception, it left out of the light perception that they were in. These things have a vibrational frequency and they can change it when they want to, in my opinion. And that's how they do it.
I just think that children will notice and see things that adults are so out of tune
Yeah.
being able to see. It just seems odd that no one has ever said anything about a young person, a really young person's.
Oh, they do. There's stories about that. Oh, yeah.
I just haven't heard any.
You just haven't heard it. There's stories about children playing with them. Another question over here?
No, she was just adding
No,
that.
I just wanted to make sure you hit on that you get reports of
Oh, yes.
usually from adults that say they play with the children or, yeah.
I like questions. Yes,
Daryl,
Daryl.
can you step up to the mic so the whole crowd can hear? That's why we're doing
So
it.
he can hear better.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, when you guys were going out there, how long had that camp been set up prior to you?
The camp has been there since 1958.
Was there any other stories or?
These, you know, there may have been, but these guys always laid it off in the bear or something else. They never could put the Bigfoot thing together until that one night when one of them got hurt on the stove, they think, and left that big print out there in the mud, and that's when it all really broke open.
So there was never any footprints or anything?
You know, if you're not looking for them, you don't find them generally. Most people aren't looking for this, and they weren't looking for it. So they may have been around, but they could have, you know how a bear will be. He puts its back paw in the front, you think it's a footprint with toes. Well, a lot of people misidentify that, you know, and, no, there's could have been, I think, and they think that these things may have been observing them for some time, but they never made their presence known until 1971.
So was there anything that set them off at that point in 1971 to actually interact with you guys?
Well, I think the 71 thing is when one of them got hurt. They were watching the guys eat, and one of them got hurt on the teapot burned. The teapot was empty. The food was gone that they'd left out. They realized the sounds wasn't from a bear. These are guys are avid hunters. I mean, they can, like I said, strike a match with a rifle from 100 yards almost. It's just ridiculous how good they are. And how wise they are in the wilderness. And they decide not to go out because they don't know what it is. It's just making a lot of noise.
So once it kind of gave itself away, then that's when it kind of all
Yeah.
started happening.
Yeah,
Type of stuff.
yeah. It got burnt, I think.
Also, she was asking about children. My family comes from Oklahoma, Native Americans. When we were being raised, my dad and they were raised like those kids. And you know, they got the little people, and they always in their family they call the Sasquatch, like tanny boats. I don't know what that means. And at night, the parents would come out and say, "Come in, you know, before we get started. This tanny boat is going to get Sasquatch is going to drown them." But they, you know, they're all over the U.S.
They are. There's federal state union reports, and even New York, upstate New York, they report these things, and it's hard to
So everyone has their
understand.
thing.
But if they are interdimensional, that's the term we'll use, going out of matter into energy and back again. They could be anywhere. Once you get out of this dimension, you're not locked into time like we are, so they can show differently. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions? You? No. Nothing? No. You? No. Well, I appreciate everybody coming here. Unless there's no more questions here for Ron, give him a warm welcome.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure, Bill, and thank you again for all you're doing. The event this weekend, we all had a very special one yesterday, and I was able to meet some of you intimately, which I really appreciate. And I just love talking to people about this because I think I'm onto something. I really do. I'm going to Colorado next month. I'm going to different places, speaking to the crowds. And I usually talk with the professor that's into this too. He knows that the prints have dermal ridges, and dermal ridges are something you can't fake. It's like a fingerprint. So he believes they're there, but he's classical science too. He only gets his funding through things that he can convince the board that it's there. And so he's looking for the remnants of Gigantopithecus, like I say. But he won't go out of that disciplinary box that they've created for classical science. That's too bad, because I think they're being restricted.
All right, Ron Morehead.
Thank you.
And thank you, Ron Morehead, for speaking once again. He's a great guy, the real deal. I hope that came through in his presentation. It's so nice to have authenticity wherever you can find it, to be damn honest nowadays. Ron's just that kind of guy. Again, go to ronmorehead.com to find out more about his sounds, or just type in the Sierra Sounds in any search engine and you'll find him. He'll also be giving lectures presently around, the Pacific Northwest. I think he's headed Colorado. So, if you yourself would like to be a guest or have an idea for a subject matter that's close and dear to your heart, you can get in touch with us here at strangebrow.com or at gmail.com. Or give us a call at 541-515-2759. 541-515-2759. I guess you'd call that the Strange Brow hotline. Leave your ideas, complaints, recipes, whatever you like. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you next week. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Bye-bye.